presentations, and I'm going to leave it up to our Home Rule Charter Ad Hoc Review Board. And Dave Cooker, I believe you are the chair, if you'll come on up. We even set it up for you, Dave. See that?
I appreciate that.
See, we're nice guys up here.
Yeah, you didn't do that for me when I was on council.
Well, that was beside the point.
I'm only teasing.
You're a private resident now.
You weren't going to.
We take better care of our residents than we do our council.
Well,
How's that, David?
I guess.
Can you turn that mic a little bit towards you, just
Don't touch the mic.
Yeah, don't touch the microphone.
Aren't we just going against everything?
Thank you, Dave.
There, how's that?
Great, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Do this, Dave.
All right.
Please state
Don't
your
pay
name.
attention to the guy behind the curtain, please.
But
Please state your name for the record, sir.
my name is David Cooker, and I am a Monroeville resident. But I was also appointed the chair of the Monroeville Home Rule Charter Ad Hoc, or the Ad Hoc Home Rule Charter Review Board.
That is correct.
And that's why I'm here tonight. In accordance with the ordinances, I believe it was 2641, it established some guidelines for this ad hoc board. And one of the guidelines was that we were supposed to present a report tonight. Well, we were supposed to present a report at the December regular meeting of council, which is tonight. So that's why I'm here.
If you'll continue, sir.
Okay. So, Mayor, as you know, and some of the people have been in Monroeville for quite some time, the old symbol of Monroeville had electrons that were circling the rest of the symbol, but which I will refer to it as the nucleus. Now, a nucleus is usually very small, and it's very dense, and it's filled with an enormous amount of energy. And when that energy is released, you know what you get, Mayor? You get sunshine. Now, it's not the kind you drink, but it's a different kind of sunshine. In July 16th, 1945, the first atomic bomb was exploded in the Jornada del Muerto. And if you were an astronomer and you were looking at the moon, you would have seen the reflection of that explosion in the desert, hence moonshine. Now, why do I mention that tonight?
Yeah, why do you, Dave? No offense, bud.
Because this is exactly what happened in Monroeville. You had an explosion of people in the 60s and 70s, an explosion of business development in the 60s and 70s. We got so big that we were nicknamed the research capital of the world.
That's true.
And one of the industries in which Westinghouse heavily invested in was nuclear energy. And so that's why I bring that up. It was part of our past. And one of the things that happened in the past was Monroeville put into implementation its Home Rule Charter, which was January 1976. Now, if we fast forward 40 years, which happens to be 12 months after it was implemented a year ago, or 40 years ago, we have undergone quite a few changes in this municipality. But there are also a lot of changes that happen within the government of the municipality of Monroeville. And these were the guidelines that the board chose to review as we went through each section of the Home Rule Charter. We were looking for changes in the law. We were looking for changes in personnel. We were looking for changes in the statute by the General Assembly. And we were also looking for changes in technology. Because we wanted to bring the charter up into the 21st century. Now, the changes that I just mentioned were definitely used to come up with some of these recommendations in our report. And so I'll talk about the report right now, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
The report itself has approximately 4 sections. The first section is the mission and history of the board, the And that section answers the who, what, when, where, and why of the board activities. The second section has to do with the changes that do not require an amendment. And the board has taken it upon itself to implement most of these changes. And if, with the assistance of the solicitor, and obviously one board member, or maybe most of the board members, we really worked we did our due diligence on this, and we're almost finished with it. The third section are the amendments that do require change. And I'm going to really focus on that. The fourth section actually has the supporting documents which support our claims for the legal and for the other things that were required to set up this committee are part of this report. So anybody needs to find anything in this report, when we say an ordinance or this law is applicable, I have that in the report itself, so they don't have to search anywhere else. Now, I'm going to focus on the first item, and that is in the report, the changes in law. And as Councilwoman Gato said at the Thursday night, I'm only going to touch on 2 or 3 items in those 4 changes that I just talked about, because otherwise I'd be here all night, and
Yeah, don't be.
then
Please.
I'd start talking.
Take it easy, Steve. Please.
I'd start talking about fast food restaurants, and I know you don't want to hear about it. You forgot that speech, didn't you?
David.
All right. So if you have your report in front of you, and if you want to turn to page 4, and then we'll eventually turn to page 6. But on page 4, we're talking about it's the first item under the recommendations requiring an amendment. By the way, in the report itself, I've color-coded it, for lack of a better description.
Thank you.
And
That's very helpful.
it makes it very easy
Yes.
to understand
Thank you for that.
what recommendations and what wording we're recommending be deleted, what words or language or paragraphs or sections that we're recommending be included, and then there's the black italics, or I'm sorry, the black, we've kept that black. The words to be added are blue, the words to be stricken are in red, and the wording in italics is information. So it's very important to understand the recommendations of the board itself. And so under recall, we are recommending that entire article be repealed. In 1966, I believe it was, the legislature, along with the approval of the voters of Pennsylvania, wanted a way in which to remove civil officers from office if they did things that they didn't approve of. And that the Pennsylvania Constitution was amended in 1966. At least that's my understanding from the information that I read. I don't know how, they must have done it by referendum. But the reason why we're recommending it is originally this Home Rule Charter did not have recall in it. There was a citizens group that came forward, and they submitted petitions to the Bureau of Election, and they wanted recall in the charter. Well, unbeknownst to the voters of Monroeville at that time, they voted to approve recall, even though it was illegal. And so that's one of the recommendations that we're asking to be included as one which will go before the voters and get rid of recall because it's illegal.
It takes 2/3 of the seating Senate in Harrisburg, and it has to be high crimes and misdemeanors and et cetera for
Yes.
an individual to be removed from public office.
Yes. And
I just wanted to say that for the public's information, that's all.
no, I thank you, Mr. Mayor. In the back of the appendix, the Government Study Commission had included that. They cited the article of the Pennsylvania Constitution in the sections in which a elected official should be or could be removed from office if they misbehaved. That's just one. I'll touch on the other one, and it's the Civil Service Commission. Now, this is almost in reverse. In the Home Rule Charter, when it was first approved, they had the manager in charge of the Civil Service Commission. Well, the police took the municipality to arbitration. I think it was around 2000. I've forgotten the year. It was around 2008, 2005, somewhere in there. I know for a fact that the police won the arbitration award, and so we're asking if you take a look at Section 2207. We are asking that's a recommendation that section be repealed. Plus, we are recommending that the language in Section 1001 be amended, because that will include the Civil Service Commission, and then everything is legal in the document.
Continue, Dave. Good.
Okay, and personnel. I'm not going to really touch on this. It's I don't have to mention about what has happened in our most recent past and what has happened in our really far past, but it has to do with the police chief and the manager. And we have recommended language in here which includes stronger qualifications, i.e. education requirements and experience. And we strongly believe that Monroeville deserves some really qualified individuals to hold these two positions. Fortunately, we have them, and we would hope that the citizens would approve these recommendations so we can continue this management of Monroeville.
Very good.
I'll go to the General Assembly. Oh, by the way, that's on pages 5 and 7, which has to do with the manager and the police chief. The changes by the General Assembly. If you go to page 10, these are part of, as you know, Mayor, I don't have to remind you of this, but the legislature is upgrading the Pennsylvania Consolidated Statutes, and that includes the Borough Code. One of those items that is kind of falling behind the times is Section 1111B. That is the powers and duties of the auditors. The General Assembly has changed the Department of Community Affairs to the Department of Community and Economic Development. We don't, and we know, I can't remember the last time, of course I wasn't here back when it was 76, so I couldn't tell you what it was like, but we don't submit an annual report to the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. So we're asking that's one of our recommendations, that we clean up this language so everything looks like we're doing the right thing here. The next one is on page 14, and that has to do with contracts. As you know, Mayor, we have a $4,000 limit right now for our contracts. Now, the General Assembly has said, well, maybe we should have done this the first time, but now we're correcting our mistake, and we're going to make the minimum amount of $19,400.
That is correct.
And then they're going to attach, every year after that, they're going to attach a growth, consumer price index, I think is what it is, but it's like an inflation rate that they will attach to this one number, and that way you're not stuck on such a small number, which inflation will outgrow. So that's another recommendation that we are forwarding to obviously in our report, and we're hoping can be adopted. So it's much easier for the municipality.
That was passed last year, I believe, or was it the year before? One of two. Was it 2 years ago? Yeah, maybe 2 years ago. So
Okay.
Thank you for that. That's absolutely what we should be doing. I agree.
So and then the last one is in technology. If we go to page 8 and 9, they didn't even have computers back then in 1976 when the charter was adopted. So some of the language that I'll read out loud is for information technology infrastructure and support, including telecommunications. Well, that's obviously trying to bring us up to the 21st century. And then in section 1109, which talks for payment of funds, there's the electronic transfer of funds. So we're trying to get rid of the language that says we have data processing equipment. Well, that's not true. No.
Okay, sure.
It's not true.
Kind of behind the times.
Yeah. That concludes my report on the Home Rule Charter. I do want to say, Mayor, that it was an absolute pleasure working with the people who were appointed to this board. And I really cannot tell you it was a very gratifying experience. And I also want to thank all the municipal employees who came forward when we asked to provide their insight, their wisdom, and knowledge, because I believe, and I know the board believes, that this is a really good report that would really bring some updates to Monroeville that are warranted. And some of those people like Mr. Little, Mr. Ratcher, we got Doug Cole in here, I saw him in the audience, and obviously to go, I'd mention the people on the board, and that's Bob Gordon, Dave Palermo, John Ritter, Kathy Villar, and God help me if I'm missing somebody.
Ed Dill?
Yeah, Ed Deal. How could I?
Don't forget Ed.
Yeah, chirogenics, I think, is what that joke probably came up.
You don't want to bring that up.
Well, David, I can just tell you this from myself as the mayor, and I'm sure I can speak for all the council. We know you guys did a lot of work, and I'll be honest with you, I'm very pleased that you got it done as fast as you did. I thought it was going to be a good year and a half, maybe even longer before you got through everything. So to you and the board, I commend all of you for your due diligence. Just thank you, because we do have to get up to the 21st century, and I think for my recommendation to council is we're going to have to decide how we're going to get this information out to, and with your input as well from the board that worked on this, to educate the residents of Monroeville on why, and I realize you only did a part of it, but there's more information on that. I think we need to disseminate that, and I'm not at liberty to say what I think we should do. I think we need to sit down and discuss what's the best way to educate our public, maybe through public hearings, et cetera. I don't know. I'll leave that up to the board. That is certainly the council's preview. But
yes.
Thank you so much,
Yeah,
David.
I think we all say thank you to everyone
you're welcome.
that was
Thank
involved.
you, Dave.
A lot of work,
Yeah,
a lot of
don't-
great
Thank you,
work.
guys.
Thank
No,
them.
thank the whole board.
Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone.
I don't know about that.
Everyone was involved from top to bottom.
Dave
Thank
Palermo.
you very much.
Did Palermo really help?
I don't think so.
Is it your birthday?
Coffee.
He did coffee.
But thank you, David.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
John.
It was an absolute pleasure. It really
Great job.
was.
Good job,
Yeah.
David.
Okay, just for the benefit of the public, the report that the Home Rule Ad Hoc Committee put together will be on the website. If it's not on already, it'll be on tomorrow. And I think, Dave, you did a very good job of formatting it, making it easy to read, what the changes are, what the existing language is, and what the proposed language is. So anybody can go on our website and look at it, digest it. And for the benefit of council, I'm going to have this on the agenda every month from now on, in case any council member has anything they want to discuss in a public forum. If council wants to, in some fashion, send emails to me, and then I can bring them up here to the meeting about what the ad hoc committee has put together. And eventually, this is going to be as a referendum at some point in the future. And Bob, you want to maybe discuss a little bit of that, how that works for the public?
Well, what's going to happen is that once council has taken the recommendations, there's public input, and council ultimately votes on recommendations to go onto the ballot. And we submit that to the County Department of Elections. There's enough material here that they're not going to be able to do it all in one election. So over the course of several elections upcoming, there will be various questions on the ballot related to these proposals. So it's probably going to take a couple of years to get everything before the citizens and actually let them vote on the proposals. And that's not abnormal at all. So it's going to take some time, and the important thing now is to get the public input so council can decide what ultimately should go on the ballot as a question for the voters' consideration.
Hear, hear. Any other comments from council before I move on to our next presentation? Okay, right now, ladies and gentlemen,